Whoa, do, 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 do. Whoa, do, do, do. How y'all be, man? Hairless mix of the blue sea. It's me. You already know what time it is, man. Let's get right into it. 10:20. I wanted to jump on here yesterday, but scheduling just didn't permit. And I was like, you know what? I'll either wait for the official to come out because of the Japanese mythology that's throughout the chapter that could make things slightly different from how I think they work, which is fine. But I'm ready to talk. This is first off, we start in the beginning of the chapter with your man one clap Kaido because it's one and you're done, son. Him and Yamato, and right off the bat, we get the name of the fruit, which is great, right? Oh, to let us feel the way we feel, and everybody came up with ideas and did a lot of research, and I was seeing it, but nobody. I won't say nobody. And I'm sure there was a couple of people who came up with the Makami, but I, I didn't bring this. I didn't talk about this last week to begin with, just because I'm aware of how vast mythologies can be sometimes. And if you're not really well versed, misinterpretation is really easy to do, right? We get that week to week anyway. So I was like, I'm gonna let the smart people handle that one, you know what I mean? But for those of you who don't know, I used to play Marvel competitively for years and kind of chilled out once Marvel 3 came out. But there's been plenty of games where Japanese mythology ends up being a part of it, right? And then if you just follow anime and manga, some of these themes are reoccurring because that's a part of their culture, campfire stories, type level type of things, and it's passed down in tradition. So that's one of the things I do like about a series where you get to learn about them without um, feeling like you're in a classroom, right? You just learn about people, and even throughout the series, characters have different names that reference another country or another culture of people. It's all throughout a lot of series, and I enjoy ones like that because to me it just makes more sense from a world building aspect that you have all these people who live on the same planet but they're different, right? Because that's what real life is like. So for me, like I said, I enjoy it even when I don't understand all the nuances and stuff. But the Makami looks pretty dope. You know, Obviously we knew it was going to be mythical just because even by One Piece standards, this creature doesn't really exist. So for it to be mythical, it ties into how things work in the series too. It's not just some made up thing, right? And with it being a guardian deity of Wano, it makes me think maybe this fruit has always been in Wano because we've seen like previously, right? Right, Mr. Two's fruit and Bartolomeo's fruit specifically belong to people of Wano. Now, Bartolomeo's fruit may have been in Wano already, but Mr. Two's fruit, Granny Shaman, may have acquired that during her journeys when she left Wano. So it's not for certain, right? But one thing we are aware of is that those fruits have existed at least more than likely, right, predating the Void Century, considering how far in time Toki had to travel to begin with. So that aspect of it is insane because it's world building, but also within relation due to time itself, right? Within the series, and how important that could be later because we know how important Wano is, but we only know because of the Poneglyphs and the Kozuki in general, right? We're still not sure exactly why Wano is so important. Besides things that we've discussed here before, like it's the things that are in abundance that naturally occur, right? And to include some of the greatest crafted swords, renowned in the series are, for all intents and purposes, implied created in Wano, which would make sense, right? Because they've mastered these blacksmithing techniques for hundreds of years, and even in real life, it's probably more than 1,000. I'm not going to get into the specifics, but you get my point, right? So the fact that Kaido acknowledges that this deity exists. It introduces an aspect to him I didn't really pay attention to like that. And it's the fact that he himself, regardless of what creature he is, at the end of the day, seems to believe that something like a deity could exist. Now, you could argue that he may just be using that as an easier way to manipulate the people, of Wano to work with him. But we're at a point in the story where he kind of doesn't need the people of Wano the same way, right? And for him to still want Wano as a location, to me, just tells me that Wano is more important than what we know at face value, right? And its implications on the series will be endless. Like, even at the end of the story, Wano will still be important. That's just the way it looks, right? The way that the world building has been constructed, and for Kaido to want that to be his home base, like I've brought up, a couple of times before, also probably has to do with its natural defenses, right? In a sense where it's not, people know how to get there, but as far as evading it, invading it, the amount of resources it would take is just way too much, right? And then you got to get there and deal with, whoa, no, 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 no. Everybody's not trying to do that. They're just not, right? And another aspect of it, of Wano that makes it like, I don't know, scientifically inclined is the fact that Kaido's going to be producing weapons. Now, he wants weapons for his soldiers, but it's possible he wants these things because he wants to sell them too to other countries, similar to what the Germans were doing, where they would sell weapons to two different countries and let them fight each other and then come clean up everybody. So they make all the money and they get all the glory, right? Similar to have you ever seen the movie Lord of War or the other version of Lord of War with Jonah Hill in it? That's basically what arms dealers do, right? So it's like Kaido's trying to have other functions that finance his ultimate goal, which is probably the ancient weapons in, the One Piece itself, and having this big grand war that he's been focused on. Like when we got more about Kaido, and it kind of brings in the other aspect of what he thinks about humanity as a whole. So that's why the deity thing was kind of, it was something I wasn't really thinking about in terms of himself. But then in Kaido's introduction, where is he? Jumping off of Sky Island, with the Mad Monk kind of praying at the time, in a sense, recovering his wounds. But the way he's speaking, it's almost like a prayer in a sense, the way that that's narrated. So it's like, maybe that has always been there, and it was just something that I just didn't pick up on, but seeing it now, and then what he wants Yamato to do, and then, from last chapter, that's why we always support the Viz, right? Because the minor wording sometimes changes stuff. We know Kaido didn't intend for the fruit to be for Yamato. But then, like, if you already read the chapter from this week, Kaido says something to the effect of, I knew a wannabe Odin like you would have ate the fruit, implying like he set it up for that to be the case, which wouldn't make any sense. So I think that would be worded differently when the chapter comes out tomorrow in the Viz. But at the same time, it's like, who was the other character? Because clearly he didn't want it for himself, and if that matters or not, I don't know. But I still want to know who it was intended for in the first place, because that aspect is somewhat parallel to what was going on with Luffy, right? And who was the Gomoko actually intended for in the first place? I still don't think it's special. I brought that up before. I think Luffy is more special than the fruit is. But it was intended for may lead us to, a clue about in the series type of things, and that parallel, which wasn't brought up until Wano, So it's like, why now again? But Yamato using this Glacier Ice Fang thing, this how was it worded? Nemoji Hyuga. Like, oh god. Useless Hitsugaya. But it's kind of a direct counter, right, to Kaido's fire and heat abilities. Because if you think about the Boro Blast, Fire Blast, whatever you want to call it, and him in a sense using heat to move Onigashima, that's dragon related things. And if you think back all the way back to Ryuma, a dragon is kind of considered a deity, so it's just kind of something's going on there with the religious type aspect or spiritual type aspect, because we do have ghosts and stuff like that and the dead with Brooke and whatnot. But Kaido and Yamato were clashing, and basically Yamato is like, look, you're not going to control my life. I know I already can't swim, and I have things I want to do, but I have to protect Wano, which is still falling in with Kaido, but it's to protect Wano against Kaido. So, like I was saying before, about this situation with what did Yamato plan to do? Because if you can't kill Kaido, what stops him from coming back to Wano? How do you permanently remove him from Wano other than killing him? I just don't see it, because if he's that focused and he waited decades, like he had this plan before Yamato was born. What led him to come to this plan in the first place, who knows? But just based on Yamato's age, right? And if we're going for, you know, like God's Valley type stuff, Kaido had to have some idea on what to do the next time around. After the rocks were broken up and they failed in God's Valley Island, he had to have an idea. So he wasn't through with whatever plan he had. He just didn't have the knowledge or the means to do so. So dealing with the Orochi pretty much put him in a position to do whatever he wants as far as a resource aspect is concerned. Because like I brought up before, Kaido's not worried about himself. He's worried about his plan and his resources, because those are not replaceable. It's just not in the time that he took. He's not worried about somebody coming to kill him that people have tried over and over again. And if it hasn't succeeded up until this point, even with the people that he knows could fight with him, he's still survived this whole time. So he's not worried about him, because right now, other than Shanks and Big Mom and Blackbeard, depending on how you feel about that, and the Admirals and whatever, Dragon or whoever else out there that's at that level, there's nobody that's touching him anyway. It's probably a single digit amount of characters. Some like on a group battle, sure. Because in this series, it doesn't matter how strong you are. If you get jumped by strong enough people, you're going out. That's just the way it's been set up into this point. Not counting like any of the movies, but the canon story, like even Roger. If enough of the right people came, and if it was a 1v3 against Roger, eventually Roger would lose. That's just how it goes, right? You can't take if you took three Garps at that time period against one Roger's going to lose, and vice versa. So why this hasn't happened is because the power balance, right? And how many strong characters are really out there, and how many understand how hockey really works, and to an advanced extent, Rio and the function of that, especially when it comes to dealing with him or somebody like Big Mom, right? And then we know, based on how Blackbeard intends to fight his battles, you're going to need Rio, especially if you're a Devil Fruit user, because you're not going to have any way to touch him anyway. He'll kill you. Like it just, even without Whitebeard's fruit, he still would be able to kill you. Now it's just worse, right? So that's kind of what my thought process was. And then just seeing how strong Yamato really is, it's actually probably like a little bit stronger than what I was thinking, but I still think the decision that Yamato's going to have to make is she going to leave Wano or not? And what is the state of Wano going to be? Because with Oden's logbook and the knowledge that she's been rereading over and over and over again, and understanding the importance of it and where the world may be going, it kind of has implications on the world government, because all ties come back to the Gorosei at the end of the day, right? Because they're the ones who are quote unquote in charge, besides Instant Messenger Sama, who seems to be really in charge. So, from an in game standpoint, Yamato's goal, besides opening Wano, clearly for Oden's standpoint, it will be a lot bigger than this. And I just don't know what's going to happen. Because, like I said, on one note, ironically, Yamato could end up staying in Wano just to protect it, because we don't know what's going to go on with Big Mom if this fight dissolves into something else, and this is going to be a global event eventually. Big Mom's role could jeopardize keeping Wano safe. especially if Big Mom now knows or has always known the same importance about Wano that Kaido does. And regardless of what you think of the Big Mom's crew, they're still a Yonko crew. And if Big Mom took the objective, she could end up taking over Wano. And she already seems to have a thing about technology because, like what I talked about with her before, absorbing the Germans' technology. So I just kind of wanted to get a little bit more into that and the whole fire and ice aspect because this chapter actually made me think about Aokiji because ice comes up quite a bit and it's kind of hard not to. Plus, he was the one that saved Robin on 2 occasions. And now I'm going to get into that. First, I'm going to turn off my AC. Give me like 10 seconds. Probably should edit that out, but I'm not going to. Anyway, now we're going to get into the meat and potatoes because we knew this fight was coming, right? We got Brooke and Robin running from Black Maria and getting ready to clap her and that kind of thing. Now, this threw me off, because I was so mentally into the whole thing with Kaido and Yamato, and I was gonna wonder, was we getting backstory yet? And then I was like, oh yeah, we've been waiting on to see what's going on with Robin, right, and Black Maria, after what happened with the situation with Sanji, which Black Maria brings up, and you know, a simp smoke's gonna simp, man. That's what he does, But with the Straw Hats, it's different, right? And right now, Black Maria made the same mistake that a lot of characters and people in real life to make. Don't skip any arcs in One Piece, man. Don't skip no arcs. Don't skip no chapters. Don't skip no panels. Because then she would have known that this weak genjutsu that she came out with was just not gonna work. Robin's resolve to begin with. Robin's hit rock bottom twice in her life already, right? Once with Buster Call, and the second time being in his lobby. So she knows what the ultimate low point in her life can feel like, right? For a person like her, there's really nothing you could threaten her with that she hasn't experienced. Like her people suffered genocide. Like anybody who could survive that, you're not going to, this little illusion magic trick nonsense. It just wasn't going to work. And, to kind of just looked at it like, you do know that, we use observation out here only. We have a thing called hockey. Your genjutsus aren't going to work here in this series like that. Clone might slide on a scrub, but nah, Robin ain't. She's been doing this too long. But I didn't expect to see Saul, Olivier, or OVA, however, whichever version you prefer, right? Because there's like 3 or 4 different pronunciations of that. And Clover, which I just talked about a few chapters ago. Remember with the whole moons and his globes and stuff like that. So I literally just talked about Clover, and I didn't think that. I know Wano. One of the underlying themes has been deception, but we don't see too many characters take this approach with tactics and fighting somebody. This style of deception to actually be able to generate an image of another person, and it threw me off because I'm aware of the folklore of the Jirai Gumo and how that functions a little bit in, the Wani Yudo and whatnot. But these images are extremely accurate. And from Brooks' standpoint, he seemed to see the same thing as Robin. So at first I took it was like how Scarecrow's toxins work in Batman, where the person just what they see is what they see, and everybody else doesn't see the same images. From this standpoint, it looks like the images are real. And I don't know if that's more on the mythos part, the fruit itself. Like, this is going to be weird when they explain how this really works. I just think if you understood mythology more, not you meaning you, but in the general state to include myself, this would make a lot more sense. But I just look at it like Kaido has information, but the odds of him having that specific information, like you would have had to been at the Buster Call or a young Marine under Aokiji and a Akaino's watch at that time, right? Or a Cypher Pole member to be able to describe them. Olivier might have been known because she was somewhat famous traveling the world, and we still don't know everything she's seen and did, right? Because I'm sure that'll come up at some point during the series. Because that led to what ended up being the end of the Oharan, something that, the world government was already aware of, but I think some of Olivier's exploits probably did gain some of extra attention, but the Gauls, they probably always planned to do this. They just didn't have an official reason on paper, probably, or something, some political nonsense like that the One Piece world functions under. But it tripped me out, even down to Saul, who, when in my why Akainu can be a part of Sword situation video, I brought up, even as a joke, that yeah, Akainu has done some stuff, but Aokiji was the one that killed his own comrade. And Akainu's done similar things, but not to on the same level with how close they were to that character that we're aware of. That's why when they explained the Aokiji and Akainu fight, saying that Akainu couldn't kill his former ally, I just found that fishy. And that's one of the reasons, because we suspect Aokiji to be a part of Sword to begin with, because it makes sense if you look at the personality type and the level of honor and wanting to make things actually fair in the real world, and stop with some of this nonsense like the warlord system, because that shouldn't even exist, right? But we know it does. And to another extent, like I brought up with the Kainu, that they may try to overthrow the Gorosei at some point, because even though he might not be the nicest person, it's not like he likes the Gorosei. And if he ever found out about Instant Messenger Sama, he's definitely gonna try something. That's just my thought process, right? And even in this chapter at the end where we get Caribou, who may have ties to Blackbeard, which this falls back to Aokiji again, kind of having information and keeping up with stuff, because he might be the one that has to save Robin. Because like Black Maria said, when she was clowning Simpson Smoke Sanji, there's big shots after you. But we've known about this. There's always been people after a Robin. It's just some people don't know why. They don't know the extent of how important Robin is. The Uncle do. See, the Cypherpole agents do. And like how, you guys know I've brought this up several times. Regardless of what Cypherpole said, I don't believe them. Because they're spies and they're made to lie, and they will lie in a panel. Just because they say it in a panel doesn't mean that it's not some sort of half truth or something. I say that all the time because that's what happens in the story. Robin's safety is always in jeopardy, and it will be. So for Black Maria to try to take that route similar to Who's Who, where, okay, I don't think I can beat you physically, or I can't gain an advantage physically, I'll attack you psychologically. And that's just never going to work with the Straw Hats. Maybe Chopper. Maybe. He's resolve wise, he's the youngest one. And he's also the one that, I don't know how to word this. Like, he doesn't deal with the the bigger the bigger aspects that would pull you emotionally. Chopper's not usually involved in yet to that degree, the same way the Straw Hats would. Doesn't mean he doesn't care. It's just that's not his role. He's to keep people healthy and try to cure stuff. So some of the bigger aspects from a macro standpoint don't really involve Chopper. But with someone like a Brook, right, in this chapter, who's, the Rumbar Pirates in that situation, and how many years he was alone for, and Brook dying before, in a sense. And Robin's been running her whole life and dealing with trauma her whole life and having to do whatever just to survive and get answers, compared to what Chopper's dealt with. He just wouldn't have the same connection as far as that type of situation, you know. So for me, it was just like, wow, they're getting real deep without trying to be all that deep. And that whole thing with the illusions just took me for a ride that I was like, whoa, I wasn't. But of course, right, she was going to be able to see through these. And we got the Tres Manu Furecia. And then we see these bums, right? We got what, like a New York rat, a subway rat, snake mink, you know what I mean? Another whack number that didn't do nothing. And I forgot the other name, but it was like Pig Nose Smile Snake or something like that. And then the Wanda Yudo that looked like Pakun from Naruto. He just escaped, and gosh, he had to summon him back, And we see Brook use some of his more soul-based frozen moves. He left his body and took care of that, which I like. Brooke always come through clutch, man. He be joking around, but just like Sanji, man, when it's actually time to come through, they come through. You know, it is what it is. And Black Mirror brings up like, well, if my illusions don't work, let's pick on your dreams. You know, and I know every word in every chapter doesn't have to do with somebody else, but I'm very word associative. So when I hear dreams, I always think about Blackbeard because that's just that word I attribute to him because they're delusional about winning, but the Straw Hats don't care. And this is why you don't skip chapters, you don't skip arcs, you don't skip panels, you don't skip nothing. Because Black Maria should have known that you can't fool the Straw Hats and you can't break their will, right? It's not going down. They've already seen each other at their worst points. You know, that's how we got 3D2Y. So for them, it's just not going down like that. And they stick together no matter what. And trying to attack them in that manner is just that's something that a Kaido crew member would do because that's how Kaido operates. But like I was saying before, for all the stuff Kaido can break, he can't break Yamato, he can't break Luffy, and now it's going to be coming to a point where he's not going to be able to break Momo. You know what I mean? Because he's caused a lot of trauma to Momo too. You know, he's taking everything from him. And then we see even at the end of the chapter where Luffy is basically had to hit him with that one line talking to Jutsu, which in this case it's fine because when Luffy does it, it's not really over exaggerated. He's just like, look, man, it's not time for crying. I know you saw your peoples die. I know you seen, you know, your pops is dead and you're only 8, but we can't rest until we get rid of one and you done something, one clap Kaido. So the threat is not over. You know, afterwards, fine. You can mourn all you want. But similar to in the end, you know, he's still Odin's son. And he carried that Kozuki blood. And we know how the Kozuki get down. From what we've seen from Odin. That dude is just, we call him Chad Head for a reason, right? And for me, him turning into a dragon, all that, like that's, you know, and we've been talking about that in the community for years and years and years. So it's just an inspirational moment, and he's doing the same thing for Momo that Jinbei did for him. Because Jinbei, like I brought up, you know, in the Who's Who fight with Jinbei, that Jinbei was the only one that actually seen how traumatic it was for Luffy. He was there in Impel Down when he got rocked by Blackbeard and saved Luffy's life because he would have died that day. Blackbeard would have killed him. Just he would have killed him there, right there in Impel Down, and the story would have been over. Jinbei was there. You know what I mean? After 3D2Y, Jinbei was the one that broke things down about how the war was going on now. You know, Fishman Island. What he did and the fishermen did to make sure that the Straw Hats could get away in the first place. Jinbei was there. Here in Wano, Jinbei been laying it down. He's the helmsman. That's what he do. So just because of that connection with those two, and his obvious connection to Ace because he was there with Ace, he fought Ace before. He knows. So he knows, and then his history as a fisherman and Fishman Island and giving Luffy his blood and just everything, man. Jinbei been there. That's Uncle Jimboski, man. He'll never let Luffy down, man. He'll never let the crew down. He'll never let his people down. So for Luffy to take that and compact it and try to give it to Momo is just something that, you know, yeah, for me, I like it. And it's going to be a part of Momo's character because he's always going to remember what happened here in Onigashima. And, if, you know, when things happen to a young age, they stick with you because he's going to have to lead people at some point. We know that. And just his connection with Zunisha, like Yamato and Momo are they're locked in. As long as Kaido don't kill one of them, they're locked into the story. And we're going to need them at some point to get where we're going. So there'll be a long, whether they do it in the crew or not, I have no idea. I just don't see them both leaving Wano. It wouldn't really make any sense because you're going to try to have to restabilize the country from zero after everything goes down, even if they get back to normal and want to open up the borders. And open up the borders is going to bring new threats, whether they like it or not. Because yes, this is what Odin wanted to do, but you're still gonna have to protect Wano because there's gonna be people eventually that still want to come there because they're gonna want to know why Kaido wanted to be there. If Kaido wanted to be there, something's going on. So it's just gonna lead more people to Wano, and they're going to have to be able to do something. Kaido's not going to be the only threat to Wano within the series. I can almost guarantee that at some point, um, the Straw Hats may have to come back to Wano, or whoever, whether it be Sword, whatever. Just just remember that, and I don't know. I think that's really. I know I kind of said a lot, but man, this chapter was really kind of crazy, right? And Caribou, this dude, I don't know what he finna do, but it's something slimy and it's something grimy, because that's all he know. He's the swamp man, and we don't know, like I was saying earlier, the connection, possibly to Blackbeard and how that wraps Aokiji into things. For me personally, that's just my own I'm out there type of thing. But I'm ready to see Robin throw some more hands, because I personally think, even back in Dressrosa, she was fast enough to catch a supernova, right? She caught Hakuba, and she was strong enough to hold him down for a few, So it's like, if we think about the combat part of Robin, it just makes too much sense for Robin to have armor and Haki. I know her devil fruit probably is one of those fruits that take a lot more energy out of you, because she's able to produce mass that's, a significant times amount than her own body structure, and do all these different things. So probably kind of like Law's fruit, it probably takes more out you than a normal fruit would, because it just can do way too much. And I understand that, but I want to see some Armament Haki Robin, man. I just envision her clutching Maria and just breaking everything, breaking all because she deserved it. I hate to tell y'all that, but if Robin gonna be throwing hands like that, I want to see some brutality, because she doesn't do nothing about her fighting style is finesse. I think we forget. Go back to the old days, man. Go pre-time skip Robin. She didn't beat people up in a nice way. It was the chiropractor that you never wanted to meet. You thought you did. Like, oh, she got a lot of hands. Yeah, she got a lot of hands, all right. But she can break a lot of things at one time. You know what I mean? And you'll never walk again, or you're gonna be a pretzel or something. So hopefully we see some, maybe she hockey up and stomp out the spider, or I don't know. That's gonna be crazy. But I'll probably talk to y'all again, because I got some stuff that I'm actually working on right now for my man Zoro, which I was reminded of. When I see Onigashima and one horn is missing, it's because of the Senpai, the Santaryu, man. Hailing in from the south side of Shimosuke Village. Y'all already know what it is. But y'all enjoy y'all weekend. I'm still be hyped. Actually been rereading lately, and I'm in an interesting point of the story where, even though it's hundreds of chapters ago, some of this stuff is kind of lines up with the themes of Wano, as far as deception and what some of these characters are trying to accomplish. I don't want to tip my hand on what my next videos will be coming out, but y'all enjoy your weekend. Be safe. Do what you do.